This is an interesting area. It's how we evaluate the work and give feedback. Now, something quite interesting to think about here is that this is an area that clients really struggle with. It's not their skill set at all. But in reality, it's not always account management skill set either. And it's absolutely critical because the client is expecting you to be able to filter the work before it gets to them, and not to filter it so that you're the judge and that you are saying the client wants XYZ. We'll talk about that. But filter it so for quality. Filter it so that it's what the client needs and what the business needs. So it's an area of creative development. It's a skill set that absolutely has to be sharpened, and it's a skill set that requires a lot of practice. And the good thing about it is that if you get good at this, you'll be able to guide your client. Well, firstly, you'll get better work. Secondly, the creatives will trust you more. And thirdly, you'll actually be able to guide the client into helping them learn how to give feedback and how to evaluate work. So this is really important. So if we just have a look at the slides here, number one, your job here is to filter for the client with a view to a successful presentation and obviously successful implementation and successful results and effective campaign. Your job in reviewing the work is not to be a judge, and it is to give concerns only, if there are any. We'll talk about it. Build, don't break. Look for what's working. But be honest. Because if you're sitting there, and I think we've all been there, I mean, I still get it, and I'm 512 years old, and I've been doing this for a long time. I still get it. When somebody shows me something, I'm not always 100% sure. And so I've got to go through my little mental checklist. I've got to go ding, 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 ding. What works? What's working? What feels like it's not working? Is there anything jarring? Does it communicate a benefit? Is it something that's going to be remembered? Does it break category conventions? Blah, blah, blah. In my little head. But that's years of practice. And that's what I'm saying to you is this is a skill that really needs practice. So we're going to talk about it a little bit now. And it's really important to continually practice everything you see, every ad you see, run it through your mental processing tools. We'll talk about tools too. But it's a learned skill, and it's a skill that needs a lot of practice. And the language to give feedback is important. So that's what we're going to talk about. So number one, you want to filter for the client with a view to actually getting the work sold. Number two, you need to have the right people in the room. So you are taking the work into a client. Make sure that the right people who can actually give that feedback are in the room. If it's an internal review, again, make sure you have the right people in the room. Is strategy there? Is media there? Who is there that can actually give really good feedback? And number three, once you've taken work from the agency into a client, you have to take it in agreement. Clients can sniff out dissension. So you have to agree. If there is something about the work that you don't like, you have to have the conversation, and you have to be persuaded, or you have to get it changed. There is a third option, and the third option is to tell your client you can't agree. And this was actually something that was told to me by a client, where she said to me, I can see that you guys actually aren't in agreement. She spoke to me after the meeting, and she said, I would much rather you said to me, hey, we can't agree on this. Like, we have, as a account management team, we have certain concerns. Creative feels XYZ. Put that on the table, and then have a constructive conversation. Remember, your client is part of the creative team. Okay, so this is about reviewing the work. You are not the judge. You are not Simon Cowell. It's not idols. You have to build a collaborative and inspiring environment, and don't be the internal client. Don't be the gatekeeper. Your job is not to say, the client won't buy this. The client won't like this. What you need to say is, the client is going to have some concerns, and I'm going to put them on the table. So you're not the gatekeeper. You're not the arbiter of the client. Can I tell you how many times I've been in situations where we have thought the client won't buy something because it's risky, too creative, whatever, and we've gone with it, and the client has been absolutely blown away and the happiest person on earth. So you're not the internal client. You're not the internal client. You're part of the creative team. Your job is not, you're not actually privy to what goes on in your client's head. You might think you are, but you're not. So you've got to make sure that you're doing the job, you're filtering it with a view to a successful conversation with your client. Let's have a look what good communication has in common. Most good ads have a big idea at the core, or at least they have an idea. Now, the word idea is often misconstrued. What is it? What is a big idea? It's sometimes also called a concept. It's where you describe the campaign thought in a sentence. Okay. Snickers, the big idea is that people become irrational when they're hungry. And then that, plays out. And then you can do that in a million ways. It's ideally based on a strong consumer insight. The idea shows how the brand benefit addresses the insight or need. So in the instance of Snickers, the need is sometimes for a snack that is heavy enough to satiate hunger. So it's not just a sweetie for the fat, for whatever. It's got to be heavy enough to satisfy hunger, but it isn't an actual meal. And the insight is that I get cranky when I'm hungry, right? So I don't want to have a sandwich right now. I just want to grab something and go. And actually, a bit of sugar pick me up would be nice. But if I take another chocolate, it might not actually be enough to satisfy my hunger. So there's my functional need. The ad is executed brilliantly. So execution in how the ads come to life, no matter where they are. If it's outdoor, if it's in shopper, it doesn't matter. They are executed well. In a memorable, simple, and impactful way. One of the greatest creative directors I ever worked with was with Lowe in London. And he had this thing that something interesting must be happening on the page. And what's actually going on? Is it executed in a way that's using those distinctive assets, but in a good way, in an interesting way? I think certain brands do it really well where they just bring so much visual stimulus into the work that they put out there. And it's interesting to look at, it's interesting to read, it's interesting to listen to what's actually what's actually happening. And obviously it's got to achieve what it sets out to do. This is a handy little 6-pointer. And when you're practicing, maybe keep these to one side and go, does it do all of that? Also, does it answer the task set out in the brief? Is it on brand? Does it align with our strategy? Is it entertaining, inspiring, and persuasive? Will it stand out from the clutter? Does it break the category? Doesn't always have to break the category, but it cannot look exactly like the category. Can the idea work in other media and through different channels? One surefire way to tell if it's a big idea is that you can easily see it flowing. You can imagine a promotion. You can imagine a Christmas execution. You can imagine whatever stemming off that idea is fertile enough to be used. Is it legal and compliant? I mean, there are certain categories that have very strict rules. Like, are you actually allowed to do this? Car, for example, car ads don't normally allow alcohol as a partner because obviously drinking and driving are not allowed. So that's where actually knowing the rules of the game and the code and the advertising charter, wherever you are, is really important. Will it be is it possible? So from a resource point of view, time and money, the one thing that drives clients absolutely bonkers is when they are sold a concept and then it's impossible to execute because it's too expensive. So you don't have to have the price necessarily when you go in with a presentation, but is it do a little bit of homework? Is it actually doable? Do I like it? This is an interesting one because it's one of the areas that clients will often, well, I don't like it. It's not always about you. It's about whether your target audience would like it. But it helps if you do like it because you're getting in to sell it. Very difficult to sell something that you really, really dislike. But remember that do I like it isn't enough. Or do I not like it isn't enough if you're actually not the target market. So those are some things to think about. When we're talking about concepts and ideas, I mean, these are just fun little examples here. You may want to pause and just have a good look if you can't see it straight away. I've looked at it so many times, I can see it straight away. But the Pittsburgh Zoo logo obviously has hidden elements built into it. And I hope you can see them by now, but if you can't, there's a gorilla on the left-hand side and there's a lion on the right-hand side and they're little fishies at the bottom. Because it's also an aquarium. So it's just a very clever use of negative and positive space to actually show what the brand actually does. So it's, does it have an idea? Yes. Is it beautifully executed? Yes. Is it memorably executed? Absolutely. Does it communicate the core idea or the brand benefit? Yes, it does. This one on the on the other side is one of my favorites. It's for a anti-smoking a tablet that helps you give up smoking. And it just says smoking causes premature aging. And there's a really lovely woman celebrating her 42nd birthday, and clearly she looks like she's 107. So is it memorable? Yes, because it creates contrast. Creativity is often we put two things together that you don't expect. Does it stop and make you think? Yes. Is it based on an insight? Well, now that's interesting. What do you think the insight might be? I'll tell you what the insight is a lot of women smoke to keep their weight down because they want to be, gorgeous and attractive and they feel that is important. The thing is, smoking is aging. So, it's all very well to do this thing because you think you're going to look like a supermodel. But if it's actually going to age you prematurely, then the very reason that you're doing it is actually going to be undone. So very powerful insight. Does it clearly can't speak, demonstrate the brand benefit? Well, we assume so. We don't really know. But yeah, I mean, it's good. Does it have an idea? Absolutely. That the idea is to show how the supposed benefits of smoking actually have really negative side effects, but in an amusing way. Okay, so considerations when you're reviewing. Don't over-rationalize. You can find problems with everything, especially if you break it down in parts. I saw the result of a focus group research thing the other day, and it just made me want to weep because literally they had taken every single frame for a TV ad and analyzed every single minute frame, and then they had little comments, and it's not how the human brain works. It's not how people will absorb the message. So when you are looking at a piece of work, you are in an unnatural environment. You're not going to look at it. The consumer's not going to look at it in the same amount of detail as you are. So don't over rationalize, especially not the first time. Just let it wash over you. What is your immediate intuition around it? Does it make you happy? Does it make you feel sad? How does it make you feel about the brand? Does it move you towards the brand or away from the brand? Have a very quick, instinctive, you're sitting on a couch, you've just seen it. No reason for judgment. If you nitpick, you can nitpick later on just to make sure that you've dotted the I's and crossed the T's, but don't do it when you're reviewing. So your gut reaction is important, but take into account how the target audience may feel. As I've said, the work may not be aimed at you. And remember this, original and innovative work often feels uncomfortable and even scary. The human brain is wired to reject change. The brain does not like change because it's a fight or flight thing. If we're walking along the street and we're a caveman, there are no streets, we're walking across the tundra, and suddenly an animal we've never seen appears in front of us. What are we going to do? We don't know. We don't know what to do. Is it friendly? Is it going to eat me? I don't know. So it scares me. So the brain has that hardwired into us that we don't like things that we sing for the first time. Creativity, by its very definition, is something we are going to see for the first time. So it is good that it feels uncomfortable. I had a client who said if he didn't have a sleepless night before a big campaign was breaking, he didn't think they pushed it far enough. So you need to live with it for a while before making a decision. If you have to go and do, sense checks with people, whatever, do that. But just understand that if it's a nervous feeling, if you go, oh, I don't know, live with it. It's good. Okay, so right, there's all that. The other thing is sometimes the very best work that you will do and that I have done is actually completely off brief. So the very best campaign I was ever involved in was a campaign for Dulux. It won multiple Cannes Grand Prix, every award that you could possibly think of, this campaign won. And it was almost a rejection of the brief. So the creative team was bored by the brief. The brief was to do an advertorial, which spoke about the benefits of the 7-year guarantee. And they were bored. And they came up with something that was 1000% off brief. But it was a very, very powerful, big idea. And it transformed not only the brand, it transformed the business. The whole company literally went from losing money. It was described as the dog of their group at the time, and it became the shining star and eventually made them an absolute ton of money. So instead of in that moment where you go, wow, that is really, really good, but my word, it has come 100% not on brief. You go back to your client and you say, we have got something. What our client did, she was actually furious with us, by the way, because we didn't tell her that we were working on it and we wanted to really wrap it up. So we did quite a lot of consumer research. And by the time we presented it to her, it was fait accompli. Here's the research. It's going to work. Let's go with it. And she was like, why didn't you tell me you were doing this? And we wanted to kind of get our ducks in a row before we presented. But what she then did was she took every single piece of her budget. They didn't have a lot of budget, but she took little promotion, a little sponsorship, a little this, a little that, and she combined it all into like the one budget to put behind this campaign. She was terrified, but it worked. So don't be alarmed if it's very, very good and it's not exactly what the client was thinking. Sometimes that happens. The other thing just about sort of reviewing things piecemeal is that advertising works as a whole piece. It doesn't always work as a jigsaw with interchangeable parts. So often adding or changing pieces can damage the narrative and the story doesn't work anymore. So my brother is a film writer and writer and director. And he dabbled a little bit in making commercials. And he just was like, why are people like this? Why do they change things and it doesn't make sense anymore? So his whole thing was that he was a storyteller. And now people were saying, yeah, but can we not have that at the beginning? Like, well, no, because it messes with the story. And he found the whole thing rather odd. So it's important to understand that a story works in a certain way and you can't necessarily nitpick and move things around and whatever. And the other thing is, if there's part of the story that doesn't actually help tell the story, then it's worth putting that concern on the table. So I just want to show you this fun little example. So there's a brilliant campaign about The Economist, and the principle of this campaign is that successful people read The Economist, and they had very, very clever title-driven executions that made you think. So, okay, here's one. I never read The Economist. Management trainee aged 42. 42 seems to be the age we're talking about here, with the lady with the cigarette as well. So what's happening here? I never read The Economist, management trainee aged 42. Okay, 42 is, I don't want to be ageist, but 42 is quite old for a management trainee. So maybe they should read The Economist. Okay, so that's the whole idea. Now, can we be more positive, do you think? All right. I always read The Economist. Company chairman, age 26. Same idea, flipped around. Not as clever. Not as clever. More predictable, not as clever. We've lost something. But it's a little bit more positive. We need to appeal to everyone. I always read The Economist. Successful businessman. Maybe we should put women in it, and also let's have a call to action. I always read The Economist. Successful business person. Why isn't there a logo? Now, the whole thing with The Economist was actually that the whole ad was the logo, because this red block actually was the little title thing on the front of the magazine. So you can see that what's happened from the beginning, where you had something quite cute and quite racy and quite interesting and something that people might stop for a minute and look at and spend time with, you've gone to something very, very bland, and no one cares. So one definition of creative is to bring two unrelated things or ideas together in a new way. So if you think about it, this anti-smoking thing, you've got this really old lady, but the surprise is the 42 on the candle. So you're not expecting that, right? So it's where you bring things or ideas together in a new way. And I love this example here. So Coca-Cola in Thailand, I think it was Thailand or Philippines, did a campaign where they turned their bottles into toys. It was quite an impoverished area. And they did a campaign where your bottle also became a bubble blower. They had another one where you could connect the bottles, you could connect two bottles and they became little dumbbells. And it's just really clever because you don't expect that. And the campaign was around a moment of happiness. And it was obviously the ability of these kids to create toys out of things that were actually in their home. So it was a very, very clever idea. Now, I mentioned those 6 key ingredients. But what I always say to clients, and particularly when they say, oh, well, yeah, you guys only want to win awards. Awards get a bad rap. Awards are good. Awards are there to actually showcase the best talent. And they perform for agencies, they perform a new business role in that clients want agencies that can do award-winning work. They also attract the best talent. And what's interesting is, and I'm so delighted this is happening, it's a sea change and it's going to grow. The more that clients understand that creative work is effective work, the more the CEOs are pushing marketers to say, are you doing the best work with your agency? And if not, why not? So there is a push. Now, when clients go, oh, but awards are only for awards' sake. Okay, well, right. Let's just have a look at the criteria. So this is the Lurie's. They're all similar. Can DNAD, they're all similar. Let's have a look at what the Lurie's which is South Africa's big ad competition. Let's have a look at what they're looking for. An innovative concept, bringing fresh and new thinking, excellent execution, relevance to the brand, relevance to the target audience, relevance to the chosen medium. I don't think that sounds bad. I mean, what on there would a client not want? Innovative concept, bringing new and fresh thinking. Good, tick. Excellent execution, tick. Relevant to the brand, so it's not awards for awards' sake. Relevant to the target audience, relevant to the chosen medium. So those are really, really good things to have. Here's an example of bringing different things together that we don't expect. Relevant to the target audience, relevant to the chosen medium, well executed. This is for Clarette, and it eliminates bad breath. She's got a fish coming out where her tongue should be. It was part of a campaign. I think there was one that had like a dirty shoe or something. So exciting. There's something interesting happening on the page here. There's a really interesting use of space happening on this page. There is a small little logo down here, but doesn't need anything bigger, because what you're wanting to do is spend time with the main visual and go, oh my word, what is that coming out of? That is disgusting. And then go, ew, does that relate to an insight? Yeah, I don't like it when my sometimes when my mouth is not clean, kind of all whatever, does it demonstrate brand benefit? Yes, it does. But is it interesting? Is it creative? Is it unusual? Are interesting things happening on the page? Yes. And then what is bad communication? So bad communication is when it's unclear, it's cluttered, it's boring. Cluttered, when I say cluttered, I mean too many messages. So sometimes you'll see an ad, and it could be in any medium, and it's just asking you to do too many things. It's asking you to think too many things. And there's this wonderful old analogy about if someone threw a bucket of tennis balls at you, how many would you be able to catch? And the reality is you'd probably miss all of them if they threw the bucket at you. If they threw one at you, you might be able to catch it. So too many messages, too much going on. It might just be boring, dull as dishwater. You're like, oh my word, I don't even hear that. It's just boring. Could be unclear what you're expected to do as a result of seeing it. So you see it and you go, huh? Oh, is that again? I don't know. Obviously, the ads that are patronizing, offensive, just stupid, those are clearly bad, right? Also poorly executed. You can have a very, very nice idea, a very good idea, a very powerful idea, and it looks like it's been filmed on, a very poor quality handheld camera. Could be good if it was the intention, but sometimes they're just very, very poorly executed. And then the other thing about being bad is that it could just be too entertaining. So it's fantastic. The music's amazing. The computer generated graphics are just like, wow, the performance is incredible. And you get to the end and it does not demonstrate a brand benefit. It does not tap into an insight. And all it is a piece of entertainment, and it is not actually an ad. There's no ad, you don't know what it wants you to think or do. It's just something that's quite nice to watch. So that is something to watch out for. So when you're evaluating the ad, what you need to do is give directional feedback, not necessarily executional feedback. You don't want to, creative director I worked with said he had a client, and I had also worked with this client, who always used, the minute she saw anything presented, she'd bring out her red pen. And he's like, what are you doing with the red pen? And she'd literally start scribbling on layouts and things. When we're first seeing something, we don't necessarily want to give executional feedback. We want to say, we want to always look at the idea first. Is the idea working? What can I build on the idea? Then you can get into, I wonder if there's too much blue in it because the competitor's main color is blue. But you want to get executional feedback later on in the process, because initially you're wanting to give directional feedback. one way of doing this is, as I said, to look at the idea. So the idea helps us show how our brand benefit answers the consumer need or belief. And visually what it looks like is you have the brand benefit, you have the insight. Sometimes the insight might be before the brand, it doesn't really matter. And the idea is articulated by saying how it brings the brand benefit to life. So it helps you then differentiation between ideas and executions. So the idea sits at the top, the executions are based on an idea that shows how you bring the brand benefit to life. So for example, let's think about the smoking one. The idea would be to show how the brand benefit is for the anti-smoking tablets. The idea is to show the disadvantages of smoking in a humorous way when it comes to things that people take great pride in. So, for example, it could be that they're spraying themselves with very expensive perfume, but actually they smell of cigarette smoke. Or in the sense as they are smoking because they want to lose weight, because they want to look good and look like a supermodel, but actually it ages them. So it could be, so that could be the overarching idea. I haven't said it very well, but that could be the overarching idea. And then as you can see, what you would then do is you would juxtapose things that people paid a lot of attention to, but actually smoking was undoing in a way. If that makes sense at all. It's a bit of a roundabout example, but I'm just trying to show you the difference. And that the fact that the idea, the way you write out the idea, then is able to pop and create new executions of the same idea. Obviously, Axe is like an amazing, an amazing case study. They have since changed their strategy because people were getting cross with them because it's all about seduction and almost taking advantage of women. And people were saying, hey, Unilever, you have Dove, which is all about women's self-confidence and self-empowerment and real beauty. And you've got Axe, which basically says that they are helpless to men who spray your fragrance on them. So what is it about? Like, where do you stand? So it became a big like issue for Unilever, but it's a beautifully articulated idea. And the idea was just simply that women can't resist men who wear Axe. So this was a clever one. So, and it was the Axe effect. What is the Axe effect? The Axe effect is that women are basically rendered helpless. Not particularly politically correct, but I mean, I have 3 teenage boys and they spray themselves from top to bottom, still with Axe. So here's a nun. She is, she is utterly compromised here unless she actually closes her nose if there's somebody with Axe around. And then you have the example where they launched Axe Dark Temptation as irresistible as chocolate. Is it still the same idea? Yeah, because they're saying that women are not able to resist. What is the insight? Women are not able to resist chocolate. So it's this kind of, I mean, I can because I don't really like chocolate, but it's this kind of tie. And is it unusual for a deodorant brand? It's still very kind of seductive. And it falls under the overarching idea of men who wear Axe are irresistible to women. That is the overarching idea. Does it show how the brand benefit comes to life? Yes, because the brand benefit at this stage is seduction, well, it's not actually seduction. The brand benefit is feeling confident that you're attractive to the opposite sex. Okay, so that's what we want to do. When we're looking at work, we want to separate the idea. Is there one? How do you articulate it? Is it working? And then have a look at those other things. Has it been executed well? Is it memorable? Is it based on an insight? Is it relevant to the target audience? Is it relevant to the medium? Is it relevant to the brand? Those kind of things. And I'm going to show you a little tool that I've got later, which really helps unpack that. So I'm going to stop now. I'm going to show you 2 examples. I want you to look at them, and then I want you got a little piece of paper or on your phone or whatever. I want you just to jot down, firstly, do you think it's good or bad? Secondly, whatever your choice is, why do you think that? And just write it down, and then we're going to come back and talk about it. Okay, go and have a look.